All righty. Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody is enjoying their Wednesday evening. Of course, today we had a lot of clouds. We had a little bit of drizzle out there. It'll be nice to get the sun to return tomorrow. And tomorrow should be the second warmest Halloween on record. How does that sound? Those records go back to the early 1940s. Where were Halloweens like this when I was a kid, or maybe when I was taking my kids trick-or-treating. With the warmth in the forecast, now is probably not the greatest time to start talking about the winter forecast, but it's our annual winter outlook, and we've been crunching the numbers over the last month or so, kind of get an idea of how the winter is going to shape up. We have a good idea how the weekend's going to shape up, but looking ahead to this upcoming winter, we can outline that for you here. Before we get into the winter forecast and the winter outlook, it is worth mentioning that seasonal forecasts are basically a step above educational guessing. So a lot of times they're far from perfect, but sometimes you get a general idea of how the pattern's going to shape up based on what's happening right now and some computer model guidance, what's happened in the past, what may happen in the future, that kind of thing. So we'll outline all of this for you here. A lot of folks might be hoping for no snow. A lot of folks might be hoping for more snow this winter, including myself. Heck, Sunday River, they're opening tomorrow. They're going to open and probably have to do a reopening. But yeah, they've made some snow and looks like there will be some more cold temperatures heading into the weekend. So big temperature swings are the big story. And tomorrow night, we'll talk more about that. But we're going to focus in on the winter forecast right now. All right, let's take a look at what we can expect. Thanks, of course, for joining us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. What else? Yeah, I think that's just about everyone. Let's take a look at what we can expect this upcoming winter. After crunching the numbers, I think we are headed for a warmer than normal winter. With that said, I think we're probably going to be looking at winter still. There'll be snow this winter. Don't worry, we're going to get our snowfall, but we'll probably end a little bit below normal in snowfall. I'm not seeing signs of a blockbuster snowfall winter at this point. My guess is we're around normal precipitation. How that translates to snow is probably the trickiest part of the forecast. We're going to outline all of this for you in a minute. Snow on the ground Christmas. Let's go with it. I think we're probably going to have snow on the ground Christmas morning. Of course, I said that last year. I don't think we did. A January cold snap. Yes, it's going to happen. 10 to 25 degrees below zero. I have 10 to 25 degrees below zero. At some point in January, early February. The way the atmosphere is set up right now and the way the ocean water temperature in the Pacific is set up right now, it looks very similar to some of the winters where we've had quick hitting cold snaps with polar vortex disruptions. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Big temperature swings in February. I think we'll probably be in the 60s in February at times, and we'll probably have an early start to maple sugaring season. In one of those winters, a weak La Nina perhaps, where winter maybe slow to let go in March. March is one of my favorite months of the year. A lot of folks really dislike March, especially when you get snow, but sun angle is just as high, just as strong as it is in August. And if you have snow on the ground, it can be a magical month. It's really nice, I think, when there's snow on the ground. I don't like it when there's mud, but when there's snow on the ground and it's 55 degrees in March, that can be some of the most fun weather, I think, that we have. All right, let's jump into how this is going to set up here. Okay, so this is probably not much different than what NOAA has. And this is a graphic I came up with about a month ago, indicating that the warmest temperatures relative to normal will be to the south. It looks like we're a little bit warmer than normal in the northeast. Coldest temperatures relative to normal will probably be just off to our west, north of an active jet stream through the northern plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, southern provinces of Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. I just like saying Saskatchewan. But yeah, that's where all the extreme cold is probably going to be. This is probably no surprise if you follow weak La Ninas. This is where we sometimes get our above normal precipitation, Great Lakes down through the Ohio Valley. So as far as precip goes, active storm track will keep this above normal in precip. My guess here in Maine, we're around normal in precip. But again, the big question is, how does that translate to snow? My guess is we're a little bit below normal in snowfall this year. We'll see. We'll get our shots, but I think we're below normal in snow. Precipitation, the exact opposite of last winter. Remember down in the south, those of you that are snowbirds, perhaps, we were talking about the deep south being above normal in rainfall. And you're probably going to be dry down in Florida and Carolinas. this upcoming winter with most above normal snow precipitation off to the north. And again, this is the map a lot of you probably want to see. And it's probably the one with least confidence too. It's below normal snow. I think that's what we're headed for in New England this year. I basically use analog years that were similar to this year, and use computer model guidance for some of the seasonal forecasting. And not seeing signs of a major winter. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I'm not seeing signs of a big snow winter. With that said, though, I think there will be our shots of cold. You'll get a chance to go skiing, and it's going to be a decent winter in that aspect here. But I think we'll probably end a little bit below normal. All right. Typically, when we start taking a look at the winter forecast, an easy place to look for is the equatorial Pacific. And what we're looking at is ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. We are looking at colder than normal water temperature down in the equatorial Pacific. We call this La Nina. Last time we had one of these was 2 years ago. We had about 3 years of La Nina, in fact. But last year was an El Nino. It was the opposite. So a lot of times when you have a La Nina, you also have what we call a negative phase of the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. And usually that brings warmer than normal temperatures through the northern part of the Pacific. And I think this is equally as important to the La Nina, because sometimes when this happens, that can manipulate the jet stream, where you get a strong ridge that develops with a polar jet up into Alaska, the northern plains. And sometimes you get a little Pacific jet that gets strong and makes its way off to the Pacific Northwest. But more importantly, though, that can produce an active storm track through the northern plains, Pacific Northwest, the Midwest, the Great Lakes. And these winters can lead to big snowstorms here in the Northeast. But what they usually don't lead to are those big nor'easters that usually develop down well off to our south through the Mississippi River Valley. You get the low that tracks there, the secondary low off Chesapeake Bay. What usually happens in these sort of setups, sometimes you get these little Alberta clippers that come across, or maybe through the Ohio Valley, and you get these late developing nor'easters. And they can bring some snow. They can bring big snow. And one of those years that I'm thinking of is 2013. That was more of an almost neutral season. It was very, very weak La Nina. But 2018 shows up, and we had a blizzard that year. So it can happen. But if you remember, even in 2013, it was a wimpy winter up to the blizzard. So these winters are known for having some big storms. So if you like storms, like snow, we have the potential for some of those in the forecast, but most active weather is probably going to be to our west. Coldest temperatures relative to normal probably stay off to our west. So one of the things we look at, as I just mentioned, is the ENSO, and you can see right in here, that 0 right there. There is -1 right here, and we're looking at what probably will be a La Nina, a weak La Nina at that, somewhere between -0.5 and -0.7 or something like that in here. It is worth mentioning this is the new update from October that comes out. These are different computer models and their projected ENSO forecast for the winter. We're looking at December, January, February. Take one of the more reliable forecast models, the European model, for instance. I will say in September, the ENSO forecast for this winter was -0.7. The October forecast is -0.3. So I had to rerun some of the numbers just in the last couple of weeks based on that little bit of a change. So what does that mean? We may not be looking at a weak La Nina. It's possible we could be looking at something a little closer to neutral. And that introduces some of the other winters that we just highlighted, like 2012, 2013. That was a -0.3. Some of the more stronger weak El Ninos, if you will. Some of those that show up will be 96 or maybe I think it was 2018. I have to think some of the other ones, but some of those numbers, actually, I think this might be the next graphic. There we are. Yes, these are all the winters that have those numbers. So I basically highlighted -0.3 to -0.9 on the ENSO index. And we have 2 years ago. We have the 2018 winter, 27-14. There's the blizzard of 13. There's 2012. We had a really warm March that year, I remember. 09. Remember 09? We're going to talk more about that in a minute. 2006, 2001, 97, 96. I love 1996. That's the year I graduated high school, and we had a lot of snow that February. 83, 84 shows up as well. I really think you can throw some of these out, though. The ocean water temperature in the North Pacific was very, very different during those months. All right, so we're going to take those 12 years. We're going to put them into a giant, we're going to put them in the computer, run the statistics. And these are the temperature anomalies for all of those winters. See all the winters you see right up top here? Let's see if I can, there we go. I don't know why that's not working. Huh. My arrow's not showing up. Sorry, folks. Huh, that's weird. All right, there we go. But it is showcasing warmer than normal temperatures in the eastern part of the United States, down in the deep south. That's no surprise. And cooler relative to normal up at the Pacific Northwest, as kind of we highlighted. So this is all lining up with what we have for a typical La Nina winter. Precipitation for those winters we highlighted, well, here in Maine, we're a little bit above average in precipitation. Look at that, pretty close. But as highlighted down in the deep south, Florida, maybe a few spots, Alabama, Mississippi, you're a little bit above there. But Texas, all the way up through Missouri and Arkansas, a little bit below normal in precipitation. So precipitation can be pretty variable, especially during the summer months. But this is what we have for the winter months. So what does that mean? Well, I highlighted all of those winters and ran the numbers. 75% of those 12 winters were colder than normal in the month of December. So this is not uncommon. Bookends, December and March can sometimes be pretty active, pretty cold, pretty snowy. I think we're going to get snow on the ground before or quicker than we did last winter, which isn't saying much. But I think we'll be getting some snow on the ground pretty quickly in December this year. Also in December, 67% of those were above normal in snowfall. Let's put snow on the ground for Christmas. Lock it in. I think it's going to happen this year. Bookends to winter. Let's talk about March for a minute. Unfortunately, or fortunately, 83% of those winters we highlighted, 83, that's the highest percentage we have of all the variables we ran, were colder than normal. So it might be one of those where February warms up. It's kind of a sneaky early start to spring, and then boom, March hits and it's colder than normal. And then March snowfall. Yeah, 75% of those were above normal in snowfall. Oh, there you go. So I think we're headed for interesting and active bookends to winter. December and March should be, especially March, could be pretty impressive. All right. So I compared those 12 winters we just highlighted, and then I narrowed them down a little bit more. And the reason I did that is I narrowed them down looking at remember the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, that warmer than normal water in the northern part of the Pacific. Well, I focused specifically on the warmer anomalies in the North Pacific and just kind of took those winters that looked most similar to this winter. And I came out with 6. So let's highlight those. And this is an important piece of the forecast here because 2023, 2018, 2014, 2009, what happened in those Januaries and Februaries? First thing that came to mind, this was very obvious to me right away. Got cold. We had polar vortex disruptions that were quick. They had a disruption of the polar vortex, a little piece broke off, came down to North America, and brought us some extreme cold that was very short-lived. The most short-lived extreme cold snap I've ever seen in my life was on February 4th, 3rd and 4th, 2023, just 2 winters ago. Remember that? Remember how cold it was? It got down to 108 degrees below zero for wind chill up on Mount Washington. Yeah, that's a new U.S. record. Not only was it 15 degrees below zero, we had winds of 40 miles per hour while that was happening. I've never seen that not on Mount Washington. I remember going home that night, the night of the 3rd, I took my dog outside. I remember thinking, wow, this reminds me of Mount Washington. I spent 3 winters living and working on top of Mount Washington. So it was pretty wild. You may remember that. So that shows up right there. That was a quick cold snap. Who remembers New Year's Day 2018? I know I sure do. I was at my buddy's house, went to a New Year's Eve party up the road from my house, about a half mile away. And I walked home that night, and it was 17 degrees below zero when I walked home. And I remember my nostrils freezing a little bit, and it just had that cool feeling to it. And I remember the next morning looking at my little Radio Shack thermometer, and it was 27 degrees below zero for and early morning low. So that was New Year's Day 2018. Another situation, we extreme cold. It came and went. And it was caused by a polar vortex disruption. Came and went pretty quickly. These temperatures you see right here, those are the temperatures at the Portland Jetport. 14 below, 17 below. 2014, we dipped to 14 degrees below zero on the 4th of January. And then another one I remember very clearly, Portland dipped to 16 below, and that was January 16th, 2009. That was when Big Black River, the USGS site in northern parts of Maine, or northern Maine, dipped to 50 degrees below zero. That is the current standing state of Maine record, coldest temperature on record. That was January 16th, 2009. So if there's one takeaway from this winter forecast, what is shaping up this winter compared to other years, these numbers, these years show up to showcase some pretty extreme cold, but very short-lived. A lot of these were warm winters. So there you go. That's why I'm going to go with a cold shot of 10 to 25 degrees below zero at some point in January or early February. There's the Maine state record, 50 degrees below zero, January 16, 2009. Oh, here's some of the wind chills. I remember putting this graphic together. I think it was a Saturday morning when I put this together on my coffee table. But Mount Washington, I interviewed the folks up there that morning, and it was 108 below for a wind chill. Jackman is 58 below. Actually, no, somebody must have updated these because I had these as local observing sites. I bet Ryan updated these Saturday night. But this is the graphic that we had from that morning. I had basically the airports, but it was 45 degrees below zero for a wind chill at the Portland Jetport that morning. And that was in February 3rd into the 4th of 2023. Which was a La Nina winter. All right, so let's look at forecast modeling. Let's bring in the modeling for seasonal forecasts. Let's look specifically at December, January, and February. Let's look at some of the more reliable forecast models. You might have heard of the European model. I think that's one of the more reliable ones we have. A lot of times the European model can't see cold very well. So areas where it might be just white right there, where it's around normal, that's probably colder than normal. So, but notice most of the nation is warm. This is for the months of December, January, February. Canadian model. That's interesting, right? That could be a cold winter if that's right. That would suggest the jet stream, the polar jet, would dip a little bit farther south, and we'd see more cold here. We'll see how that plays out. Not seeing a lot of signs of ridging up in Canada. A lot of times you look for low height anomalies, we call it in weather. So a lot of high pressure centers up in Canada. A lot of times that can be, we look for blocking mechanisms for big storms and cold, and just not seeing that set up this winter like you would want to see for big snow winters. But this is a Japanese model. I think a very reliable model off on the right there, upper right. A lot of warmth, as just like the other models, coldest relative to normal, probably from Canada down through British Columbia. So the US model, I could take that around normal here in Maine. Sure. That might be pretty good. But all of these have warm conditions, warm relative to normal down in the deep south. Actually, really anywhere south of the Mason-Dixon line looks pretty warm. UK Met, another European model, very similar. Still has that normal or colder than normal signal, which is typical of La Ninas up through British Columbia, up through Alaska. And this is the C3S multi-system forecast. This takes into account a bunch of different models, including the European model, the Japanese model. I think the UK Met's in there as well. So yeah, there's a clear signal that the months of December, January, and February, as far as modeling goes, will probably be a little bit warmer relative to normal. Let's take a look at those same models and take a look at precipitation right now. These models, here we go. European model, around normal or so. Yeah, around normal in the Canadian, around normal in the Japanese, maybe a little bit above. US model, maybe a little bit below. Around normal in the UK Met. Precipitation is pretty subjective. It's one of those where, I don't know, especially in the summertime, you get those thunderstorms, and you can be above normal pretty quickly. So I'm not going to spend too much time working on this, but it is worth mentioning. Notice the bullseye for a lot of these winters right there through portions of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, up through the Great Lakes. We're seeing that in just about all computer models right here. This goes all the way down into Missouri and that sort of setup. See the little wedge right there in the UK Met. So that is very typical of La Ninas. So there you are. So we highlight a lot of the La Ninas that were very specific to include the similar look to the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, that warmer than normal water in the northern part of the Pacific. That also takes into account the ocean water temperature anomalies closer to the coast of Canada and the U.S. But I was focusing mostly on how warm it is, basically from Japan right up through the Gulf of Alaska. But so we highlighted those years. I don't know if this is even worth mentioning, but let's just mention it anyway. The reason I have low confidence or lowest confidence in snowfall for weak La Ninas, look at this. We're looking at all the ENSO phases here from 1941 to 2021. And shout out to Josh Timlin, who made me this graphic. I think he lives in New York, but he was kind enough to make me this graphic. It's a few years old now. It's 2021, but it takes into account the 1991 to 2030 year means, which I think is nice. Weak La Nina runs right in here. And we're looking at temperature right here. We're going to look at snowfall in a minute, but you can see the mean is this little dotted line, and weak La Ninas can sometimes get cold. Strong La Ninas can sometimes get pretty warm. So there's temperature, and here is the weak La Nina as far as snowfall goes. The yellow, we can get some snowy winters. This takes into account all the La Ninas 1941 to 2021. It's worth mentioning, I can pretty much throw out a lot of the La Ninas prior to probably 2000. Even 96 looked a lot different. 96 was very, very different than this year, but that was a La Nina. 83, 84 was a La Nina. But things were very, very different back then. So I'm a little hesitant to say below normal snowfall for the winter, but that's what we're going with. We're going with below normal snowfall. But you can see clearly that years past, we've had some very snowy winters during weak La Ninas. And this is another example of that. This is kind of a tough graphic to look at right here, but this comes from NOAA. This is all La Nina years. We're around normal in snowfall. These are snowfall years right here. All the years going back to the 1940s, I'm pretty sure. Snowfall weak La Ninas, we can be above normal in snowfall here in Maine. And strong La Nina years, we're a little bit below normal in snowfall. So there's a big difference between that ENSO phase I was telling you of minus 0.5 and then a minus 1.5, for instance. And that's degrees Celsius in the equatorial Pacific. So I think that's the last graphic I have. Oh, yeah, that's my National Weather Desk forecast. Let's just run through really quickly the forecasts, at least the easy graphics at the beginning for folks who may have missed that. We're going with a warmer than normal winter. I think that's pretty similar to what NOAA has anyway. Precipitation above normal. Here's the area that is fairly typical for seeing above normal precip during a La Nina year, from the Great Lakes all the way down through the Ohio Valley, all the way down through Tennessee and Kentucky. Going around normal for us. And as far as snowfall goes, probably a little bit below normal in snowfall. So we'll see how that plays out. And a lot of that has to do with the ENSO phase. So I hope some of this makes sense. I hope that's making sense with everyone. And there's that blob I was telling you about where we have ocean water temperature anomalies warmer than normal. But notice it is cooler than normal up in the Gulf of Alaska in some spots right up in here. And that's fairly typical along the east coast of the U.S. as well. That plays into the what we call the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. I didn't get at all into the Arctic Oscillation. A lot of those winters I highlighted showed a negative Arctic Oscillation for maybe about a month in January, February, including 2009. Some of those showed up a little bit later in March, 2009, 2018, 2023, 2014. So it can happen. No ice storms, please. Let's see. Let's bring up some. I'm with you. Let's hope no ice storms. I'm sure we'll get one or two. Usually good. 13th of March. Yeah. Hey, David, how are you? Good sized snowstorm on March 13th. Yep, we can usually get a. I hope we don't get one on the March 13th. I think I'm going to Sunday River. I've already booked it, so I'm hoping I don't have to work that day. But we'll see what happens. If somebody were to say, "Hey, Charlie, when are we going to get the biggest snowstorm of the year?" I always say within a week of President's Day. Within a week, lock it in. A week of President's Day, we're going to get a storm. And during a La Nina year, I was just talking to Matt Honig. Remember Matt Honig used to work for us here at CBS 13, works at WMUR. His birthday is December 16th. And I say, Matt, we're going to have a snowstorm on your birthday, like we did a few years ago. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. Becky, she'd rather mow the lawn. Yeah. Nobody wants to shovel snow. February 6th. February 6th. Oh, okay. I'm sorry for your loss, Becky. 1 year anniversary. Let's hope there's no snow for that. Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss. Becky's got a lot of things to say here. Mild winter, a little snow. I'm with you. We'll see what happens, Becky. Thanks for all the nice comments. I appreciate it. Let's see here. Let's bring this back here. All right. Shirley says, if it's just snow, I'd rather deal with that. But when it snows and it rains and the temperatures take a nosedive, yeah, I have a feeling it'll be like that in February this year. I have a feeling we're headed for one of those winters. I mean, no real consistency. If you're looking, when was the last time we had a good, consistent snow where we just really started building a glacier? It was back in 2015, right? I mean, it snowed every 2 days and it was cold the entire winter, at least February. It started in late January with the blizzard that year in 2015. But we really have had, the storms that we get them, they melt. We get them, they melt. We get them, they melt. So we'll see what happens this year. I don't think it's one of those years, though, where it just snows a lot consistently and it doesn't melt. That's what I think. We'll see. All right. Michelle says, I hope we have snow on Christmas. Lock it in, Michelle. We got this. Snow on Christmas. Well, 6 inches in the ground. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, there's, I think, 68% or 67% of the winters I analyzed had snow on the ground Christmas morning. So let's hope. I think we'll have snow on the ground. What year was it that we had the snowstorm on Christmas? Was that 2017? We had a big snowstorm on Christmas, and the Weather Service issued a blizzard warning. I remember that. We had 12 inches of snow at my house, I remember, and it was only 5 inches in Portland. But I remember the Weather Service issued a blizzard warning. We didn't need it, by the way. I remember they issued it, and we didn't even come close to the criteria. But yeah, what year? I think it might have been 2017. Interesting. That's one of the analog years. Don't hold me to that. I'm not sure what year it was. If you remember, chime in. What year was that we had the Christmas snowstorm? Because that would line up nicely with our stormy December. There it is, 2017. Let's hope. We'll see. Klein, Carabassa Valley checking in. Hello to you. Thanks for checking in tonight. Shirley likes what she's hearing. Me too. Everybody's checking in. Travis doesn't want to think about it. We have to start thinking about it. It's only October, and it's going to be 75 degrees tomorrow. But we got to start thinking about it, I guess. And these forecasts are, they're a step above educational guessing. But every year my boss asks me to do it, so I try to have fun with it. Oh, one of the ones I always like to have fun with is the ice disc. And, the big years for the ice disc were 2019. That was the year where the activists went out and they go out and make a peace symbol or something on the ice disc in Westbrook. 2020, we had one. 2022, 2023, we had one as well. I didn't see a lot of correlation that we're going to get the ice disc this year. There's probably a 50-50 chance. I kind of left it out of the forecast. So, yeah. I'd like to see the ice disc. I think Westbrook has a nice little thing going there with the ice disc. Byron's checking in here. Hasn't seemed like the rain and snow events are more and more prevalent. Hasn't seen, yeah, rain on snow events. Yeah, I'm with you. We just haven't had those snow on top of snow events where it stays cold. Storm tracks going north of us. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of storm tracks to our west. And that puts us in the warm side. Yeah. 12 to 18, real snow, not slushy. Yeah, I don't want slushy either. Huh. Remember the one we had in April last year? First week in April? I live over interior York County, and wow, we had 15 inches of heavy, wet snow. That was something else. More power outages than the ice storm of 1998 in that. That was something else. All right, let's leave it at that. I think I've answered everyone's questions. If I have not, I apologize. And hit me up, email, maybe, perhaps. But in the near term, we are going to have a very warm Halloween. And it is probably going to be the second warmest on record. We'll be in the mid-70s tomorrow, low to mid-70s on Friday. So enjoy that while we have it. All right, folks, have a nice night. Tomorrow night is we have our Rennie's forecast, and I have to remember to do it. I forgot last week, but I'll have to do it tomorrow night. So join us back here at 8 o'clock for the weekend forecast, which does look cooler. All right, take care. Bye, everyone.